How's it everyone, Grant here, welcome back to the channel. And this is going to be a different kind of video today. I want it to be sort of a couple different things. Number one, I want it to be my 4K endurance test on the Sony Xperia XZs. And I also want to test out my brand new gimbal here. I went with the DJI Osmo Mobile. And so we're just going to walk and talk for a bit, but I just wanted to show you that quick sunset there as it's just before evening and we're just walking to my dog here. But I just want to walk and talk, and as far as the first part, the 4K endurance test on the XZs, I did a camera comparison video between the XZs and the Galaxy S8. And first off, thanks for everyone for checking that out and for leaving some comments and participating in some great discussion there. It's by far and away my most popular video on YouTube as far as views. So thanks again to everybody for checking that out, really appreciate it. But a lot of the comments in there were asking, does the XZs overheat while shooting 4K? And I did a couple of different 4K clips for that video, and they're only about 1 to 2 minute clips. And even though I reshot them about 4 to 5 times each, so that was maybe, no more than 10 minutes of total 4K content, it was never one continuous shot. So for those who aren't familiar, Sony phones don't tend to play well with the 4K content. They usually overheat and not allow you to really record a very lengthy clip in 4K. And sometimes they even disable 4K in some more than capable devices like their compact series. They have flagship specs, but you can't record 4K in it because I guess it's just a small chassis and it overheats even more than their other devices. So, but I didn't notice any kind of overheating when I was shooting those short clips on the XZs. So I figured I'd just do one long continuous clip here and see how it handles it. And I figured while I'm doing that, may as well mount it to my Osmo Mobile gimbal here. And I've got Sony Steady Shot off, so the stabilization that you're seeing is coming all from the gimbal itself. The gimbal should only be stabilizing the left and right movement. So if you look at the equator or the middle of the video, maybe that tree line, you shouldn't see any kind of left and right shake. You may see some up and down bobbing because it won't compensate for that. If you want to smooth out the up and down, you're gonna have to walk a lot smoother, a lot more carefully, but I'm not. I just want to test out the stabilization if I'm walking normally here. And I decided to go with the Osmo Mobile because I did a bunch of research, and yes, there are a lot of other cheaper gimbals on the market in the 200 to maybe 250 range, even as low as 140 or 150 for some pretty good ones. The real differentiation in them seems to be in the software. The Osmo Mobile has some pretty good software for motion time-lapse as well as object tracking that works pretty well. So I decided to go with the Osmo Mobile because I like those features. I figured it had better software support from a more well-known company like DJI, as well as general support as well. But if you don't need the software features and you don't care and you just want something to stabilize your smartphone video, and you're going to use the built-in camera apps anyway, go with the most reliable, cheapest option you can find. But that's kind of why I went with the Osmo Mobile, so we'll see how it works out here. And since this is an endurance test, I wanted to kind of see if this will go for at least 10 minutes. So while we wait for that, I figured let's talk Sony since I'm shooting this on a Sony. I can go through some of the history I got with Sony devices, especially smartphones. My channel is only about 5 to 6 months old, and I've only started recently featuring some Sony devices because they've just launched a lot of their mid-range phones like the XA1 and the XA1 Ultra. And a lot of their current flagships, which is the XZs, had gone on significant sale. So I picked up the XA1 and the XZs. I've got the unboxing of those on my channel. I hope to have the review up on those devices at some point as well. But I've got a long history with Sony, even smartphones. And my first Sony smartphone was the Xperia Z Ultra, the big 6.4-inch phablet. I believe they released that in 2013. I picked it up that holiday season when they discounted it. They actually had a Sony brick and mortar store here, so I could actually physically go and check it out, and they had it on sale. It was more of an impulse buy than anything. Back then, I didn't really know much about Sony phones, and I saw it was less than 300 bucks. And I thought it was just really awesome. It was such a super thin, big phablet that I couldn't resist, and so I picked that one up, and I still have it. It's a great phone. And after that, I got the Xperia Z3V. So they released the Xperia Z3 lineup, and they released a variant for Verizon, which is a US carrier here in the US if you're not familiar. And if you remember, with that version of the Z3 for Verizon, they added wireless charging and waterproofing, which had some physical design changes to the phone that made it pretty ugly to me, but it's still a great phone. And it was great that they were actually in carrier stores. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. So from the Z3V, I went to the Z5 Premium, which was their 5.5-inch phone with, I believe, the world's first 4K display in a smartphone. And I think it still is the only smartphone with a 4K display until the new XZ Premium is released. But it was defaulted and always ran in 1080p resolution, unless you actually played some physical 4K content on the device, and at the time there really wasn't much of any. So that kind of made that display a little useless, but it was still a nice device. I then got the Z5 Compact, which is their small 4.6-inch version with flagship specs in it, so pretty much the same specs as the Z5 lineup, just in a smaller form factor at 4.6-inch display. And that's still pretty unique on the market. You don't see small compact phones with flagship specs anymore, and I read today that Sony's planning on discontinuing the compact lineup, which is really sad because, like I said, that was very unique. I thought they had a very unique offering in the market, but unfortunately they cited, I think, weak sales outside of Japan, specifically in the US. And that leads me to the next topic of conversation. I'll kind of go through the rest of my phones real quick, I think, for Sony. So after the Z5 Compact, I got the last year's mid-range lineup, the XA, the XA1 Ultra, or the XA and the XA Ultra. And of course, I picked up the XZ last year, actually, the precursor to this XZs. And then of course, I just picked up the XA1 and this XZs, and I might pick up the XA1 Ultra if it comes out, when it comes out to the US. I do plan on picking up that XZ Premium as well. But going back to the topic of Sony deciding to shut down its X and X Compact lineup due to poor sales, especially in the US, I think most people will probably say and agree that Sony's probably done that to themselves. They don't really pour a lot of money anymore into marketing in markets outside of Japan, it seems. Definitely not here in the US. They shut down their physical stores here. They don't have devices in other local retail stores. They don't have local carrier deals. So no one here in the US can physically experience a Sony smartphone. They can't see it, feel it, touch it. More importantly, if they like it, they can't finance it. So that's the big deal now, is financing. A lot of these phones are expensive. And, you know, if people really want them, they're enticed by these financing options where you pay maybe, you know, 20 bucks a month, and it makes it a lot more palatable. So they can't do that either. And most people, they can't really physically experience it and or get it at a nice deal or a financing deal. They're not gonna take a chance on it. So it's a real shame that, you know, Sony's dropping some of its lineup and citing those reasons that it's not selling well. I think if they poured some marketing in, got back some carrier deals, they could start doing a lot better. But that's just how it goes. I was really looking forward to picking up the next compact phone that they offered. Looks like we're at about almost 9 minutes, and there is no overheating here. I'm not getting kind of heating warnings or shutdown messages, so we're still doing well. Let me know what you think about the stabilization to this point. But other than that, what else? We've got upcoming Sony devices. So like I mentioned, the XE Premium, the follow-up to the Z5 Premium. XE Premium is going to have a 5.5-inch 4K HDR display. By all accounts, it's still running at 1080p by default with no options to change the resolution like Samsung has on their Galaxy S series devices, which is too bad. I hope Sony can listen to some folks and add that as an option. I doubt they will, but that'd be really awesome to be able to run it in 4K whenever I want. So again, you're going to be limited to watching things in 4K with only 4K content, and at least now there should be a lot more 4K content. I believe Sony has a deal to showcase some of the Amazon 4K HDR content that they have. The G6 got certified for Netflix 4K content, so hopefully the XZ Premium can as well. But it'll also have the Snapdragon 835. Still gonna have 4 gigs of RAM, not 6 or 8 like the trend seems to be going. But it'll have this 19 megapixel motion eye camera that I showcased in the XZs in that camera comparison video. So if you like the photos and videos that came out of the XZs, that's pretty much what I think you can expect from the XZ Premium. And again, like I've been saying, if you want to save, more than a couple $100, and you don't care about the 4K screen, you don't care about having the latest and greatest processor because this Snapdragon 821 is still really good in the XZs, I say get the XZs. You can save easily $200, probably more, in buying an XZs over the XZ Premium if you don't care about those things and your main interest is in experiencing a Sony device and that great camera. I say go for the XZs. Outside of that, they're also looking to refresh that Ultra lineup, not the XA Ultra lineup. Good, how are you? They got that XA1 Ultra, sorry, lost my train of thought. But they're trying to refresh that Ultra lineup, that 6.4-inch phablet. The Z Ultra, they're supposed to be coming out with the X Ultra. That's supposed to have more of mid-range specs, the new Snapdragon 660. I think it'll still have a smallish battery, around 3,000 milliamps, but it'll be that 6.4-inch display. So I think if they price that right, that could be a pretty good seller. I'll probably pick that up as well. It'd be exciting to have that follow-up to that Z Ultra in my hands again. So hopefully with those mid-range specs, it'll definitely be priced cheaper than their flagship, of course, the XZ Premium, but knowing Sony, they'll charge more than most people would for more of a budget to mid-range device. Just like they're charging $300 here in the US for their XA, which is their budget device. That's probably at least $100 more than most others would charge. So that's another thing. Sony's a premium brand and they treat their pricing on all their products that way, including their smartphones. And I think they can get away with that with a lot of the other electronics, because Sony's a recognized brand in things like TVs and stereos and whatnot, but not so much in smartphones like we've been talking about. And I grew up with Sony electronics. When I was growing up, if you wanted any kind of electronic device, you would get Sony because it was pretty much recognized as the best. You want the best TV, you want the best stereo, you want the best Walkman. Remember those cassette players and CD players? If you remember cassette tapes and CDs, they had the best. And you're willing to pay the premium price for it. Unfortunately, that's not quite the case here in smartphones just yet. And we're at about 13 minutes, so we crossed the 10-minute mark. Still not hot or overheating. No shutdown warnings. Recording 4K content over an extended period of time, really great. So that's definitely a good sign there. The last thing I want to talk about is the Sony camera technology. That's pretty much why I got the XZs. I couldn't wait for the XZ Premium. I wanted to test out their latest camera because they have the best camera sensors as far as hardware goes in the business. A lot of the industry, a lot of other OEMs and manufacturers use their sensors in their phones. They just put in better image processing software to come up with some better photos than Sony. So even in their latest lineup with the last year's XZ as well as this year's XA1, it has the same rear 23 megapixel camera sensor. And it's a good camera, it's a good sensor. Can produce great photos, but you have to work a lot harder for them. Getting in tight macro shots, the autofocus is not very good. Even in manual, you may not get it to focus. So in the end, you can take some very, very good shots if you want to have a little bit of patience and or switch over to manual. But even in manual mode, you may not get the shot you want, and which is a little disappointing, quite honestly. And I think ease of taking a photo is important to a lot of people. If you can just pull out your pocket, snap, and come up with a good picture, that's very important, versus having to work very hard for the same photo. A lot of times you're not gonna have the time to do that. But I'm really happy that in the XZs with this motion eye sensor, and I'm assuming they improve the image processing as well, that they're really producing some much improved photos and video. Like, it's night and day in the difference between the images and video that's being captured out of their previous phones and this XZs. So I'm very happy to see Sony step up on their software image processing there. And I think you can look forward to good things in XZ Premium. But we're at over 15 minutes now, so I think I'll cut it short. Or not short, but cut it here. I think I've proven that you can take some very lengthy 4K video here without it overheating. The audio from this was coming from an external mic, not from the XZs, because I'm out here and it's a little bit breezy. So just know that. But if you have any other questions or comments about the XZs, any other upcoming phones, or anything else, leave a comment and let me know. And other than that, as always, folks, thanks for watching.